All right. It looks like if you got a notice that recording and transcription has started. So welcome to our first of our series of online workshops for aquatic invasive species prevention and management here in Minnesota. I'm Tina Fitzgerald. I'm an aquatic invasive species prevention planner with the Minnesota DNR, one of your co-hosts here today. And Doug, you want to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Tina's counterpart, the Northern Aquatic Invasive Species Prevention Planner. Great to have you all here.
Yes, it's great to see everyone here today. And so we'll just go over some workshop goals. You know, these workshops we always organize to make sure that you're learning from one another's experiences and to network with your peers. We do want to set some expectations for our meeting here today as well. We want everyone to contribute to the conversation. We want you to be an active listener and to speak honestly, to share information in ways that can help others be successful. Be respectful and open to new ideas and new ways of doing things, and make sure that everyone participates and no one dominates. So with our topic here today is AIS activities at water accesses. So everyone on the call here is on here for a different reason. We're representing different organizations and different levels of expertise and knowledge, different areas of coverage. We're all here to learn from one another today. So thank you for attending, thank you for being present, and thank you for engaging on this topic today of aquatic invasive species activities at water accesses. So I have got the agenda posted here today, and we'll talk, you know, Nancy and I get to be our first presenters here on AIS activities at water accesses. We'll have Ariana talk about boat cleaning tool stations, Alicia, Liz, and Garrett talk about bait bins, Dina and Bill talk about working with resorts, Alex talk about the AIS Explorer, and then we'll have discussions. So right now our framework is we have about 10 to 15 minutes for each presenter, and then 5 minutes dedicated to discussion after each presenter, and then additional discussion time at the end. So we'll try to keep to this schedule and go from there. So with that, I'll just transition right on over to my other PowerPoint. So are we seeing the first screen here? Yep, okay. And Nancy, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Nancy Stewart. I work for the Minnesota DNR in the Parks and Trails Division, and I work with public water access, fishing pier, and state water trail programs.
So Nancy and I will be tag teaming this presentation today. I'll cover the first half, she'll cover the second half. Just talking a really general overview of different AIS activities that can be done at water accesses, really focusing in on kind of infrastructure. And so there's a lot that can go into this. So we'll just cover the very tip of that iceberg on how to do AIS activities at water accesses. And then we encourage you to reach out to the DNR and other people that have done this kind of work to really dive into any specific project ideas that you're considering in your local area. So our aquatic invasive species goals for the state of Minnesota are to prevent the introduction, prevent the spread, and reduce the impacts of invasive species on Minnesota water resources. As far as infrastructure at public water accesses go, we want to provide consistent and familiar designated areas for aquatic invasive species prevention activities. We want to increase AIS awareness at boat accesses and provide a safe environment for all types of access users. So the first step in working at a public access is getting permission from whomever owns that access. Every access is owned by a different organization. There's a variety of federally, state, and locally owned and managed water accesses in the state of Minnesota. You can find out who owns the access using the DNR's Lake Finder or we have a list of public water accesses that we can send you as well. And we can't emphasize enough that it's extremely important when you're first thinking about doing anything at water accesses to get permission and buy-in from that access administrator. You wouldn't build something on your neighbor's lawn without their permission, right? So you want to make sure that you're getting permission and that buy-in from that access owner. And if DNR is one of those access owners, you can work with our Parks and Trails area supervisors. And depending on the activity, those permissions might differ. And not all activities are feasible at an access, and we'll get into that a little bit later. So we've done some research on this, and there's been a lot of research done in the past as well. Some recent surveys of anglers and registered watercraft owners show that the barriers to cleaning and draining boats are that they don't have the tools and equipment that they need. 27% of them said that. When asked what would motivate them to take action, it's access to running water, having a staffed decontamination unit, and having cleaning tools available. And they prefer to receive information at these boat launches and fishing access points. And the registered watercraft owners are similar. They want somewhere to place weeds and aquatic invasive species at the access, and they want tools for cleaning aquatic invasive species off their watercraft. So here's a bunch of examples. Again, we could probably spend 3 hours on each of these topics alone, but we won't do that here today. So just signage is a really important way. It acts as a prompt, a reminder in the place and time where someone needs to take those actions. Our mobile decontamination units provide professional AIS removal services, providing a water source, on-site compost to place aquatic invasive species in, bait bins to properly dispose of live bait, our clean in and clean out areas where the boater can both tie down or get ready their watercraft, as well as check for and remove aquatic invasive species. And then, of course, tools. There's all sorts of tools that can be provided at public water accesses that boaters can use. And the DNR is working on a couple initiatives right now that I want everyone to be aware of, that we are updating our sign manual to make it a more streamlined, more plain language, visitor-friendly sign system for the entire agency. And this will include signage at public water accesses and aquatic invasive species in particular. Another thing that the DNR is working on this summer is evaluating tool use at water accesses. So any self-serve tools provided at water accesses, we're going to see what boaters like, dislike, do they use them, how often do they use them, and really dig into the weeds there as to what tools are best to provide at water accesses. So those are some neat upcoming things I'll be working on this summer. So next, I'll pass it on over to Nancy. And Nancy, you want to just let me know to advance the slides, and I'll do that.
Sure. Yeah, so just some considerations when working with the water access sites. They're not any water access site is the same. And so you really have to do that site level review when you kind of have that idea of what you want to put at the site. You have to kind of look at the way the site is laid out and the traffic flow, because we don't want to cause any safety hazards or misuse of the site as we're placing AIS prevention considerations. So we want to meet those AIS goals, whether that's coming into the site, leaving the site, or both. Where the site is on its development status. Has it been like redeveloped recently? It probably has a really great clean in, clean out area to put some of those tools and different features. If it hasn't, or if it has an upcoming development, that's a great opportunity to add stuff as well. So always looking out for that safety, maneuverability, traffic, and use. And then with the state, we work really hard to meet accessibility requirements. So that's always going to be part of the conversation as well. And then again, what's the current infrastructure and just those best areas. You can go next slide. So here's just an example of a site plan. And it just really helps you kind of lay out, how the site looks, where the traffic is going, and how you can support the AIS activities. So this one happened to have a little stormwater pond area. So they were able to build kind of the AIS cleaning area kind of around it. And so and then just where to place signs and just where boaters are going to receive those messages. I think it's important to remember that a public water access site is a place for the boaters to get on and off the water. They're spending most of their time on the water, so the parking lot and the boat launch needs to remain very functional. And so just a little background for the DNR, we manage around 1,650 public water access sites. There's about 3,000 in the state, so the remainder are managed by federal, city, county, township. And so it's a lot, it's a big number. We have the state divided into 15 areas, and each area has multiple counties. And so we have 15 area supervisors out there that, and some of you are, probably just in one county, and it would be good for you to know who that DNR area supervisor is for Parks and Trails. And then each area takes care of a mix of water access sites, fishing piers, water trails, state forest campgrounds, and some of them also have state parks. So they're very busy people. And we are doing our best to add those clean and clean out areas to access sites as we redevelop them. It's a very important part of our program, but our sites typically do not have power, water, or sewer. So if that is if it's something that you want, where you want to provide water or something that requires power and we're redeveloping a site, that's a really good time to get that voice in to make sure we get some of those features added. And then if you want to add tools, we are definitely open to the idea. We want to work with you on those proposals. But the more complete proposal you can come to us with of what you think you want to do and where you want to put it, kind of having sort of worked out that site level plan a little bit, the easier the approval process will be for us on the DNR side. So just kind of thinking it through. If you're really in that general stage of this is what we're thinking, we're definitely happy to answer those questions. But if you kind of already have an idea of a direction you want to go, coming to us with a really great plan is great. This one's still mine, Tina?
Yes, I'll let you take this one.
All right. So we are always interested in working with partners on different things. And so, we're going to just also take a look at the site to see what kind of infrastructure is going to be needed and what's going to really fit. And so that's going to be also in consultation with Tina and Doug and maybe even some of the area AIS staff. Because I think they do a really good job. They know the rules, the laws, the programs. We want things to be consistent for the boaters. And so I think that's going to be a really good connection there as well. And so when we need to then, when we're having someone else like, city, county, put something on a DNR water access site, we need to have it under some sort of an agreement. And so we have a few different tools in our toolbox for that. And it just kind of depends on what it is. So if it's something that's like temporary, like the, or like a post in the ground, we can usually do what we call a special use permit for those. And that's a pretty easy agreement to do. But anything that goes in cement or on cement needs a lease, and the leases are a lot more complicated. They have to go through our Lands and Minerals division, and they get a much more thorough review. So those just take a little longer. We're going to have the maintenance be part of the responsible party, but also a way to kind of get around that lease agreement is with a donation. So anything that maybe goes on cement could also be donated to the DNR. We're still going to want that responsible party to do the maintenance. However, it just takes away that time of doing the lease agreement. And we're actually in process of doing one right now. It's not, it hasn't gone all the way through the donation process yet, but we're trying it out. So that's kind of exciting. And the other thing we can do if it's with a city, county, a township, is we can also use what we call joint powers agreements or cooperative agreements to work through different different proposals as well. And so that's a really easy agreement to use too.
Thanks, Nancy. And I'll just take this last slide here and emphasize evaluation. So we all want to do things at public water accesses. We're really excited. We know the boaters want information there. They want tools there. They want space to pull off and remove weeds and invasive species. They want all these things there. And so we put them out there. But a lot of the times as managers, we don't go back and ask, did that work? And so whenever you have the opportunity to do kind of before and after observations or interviews with people at the sites where you're doing work is extremely valuable, and everyone can learn from that kind of information. So for instance, you could observe boaters, what kind of actions they take, where they stop to clean their boat, how long they take, safety issues, watercraft that are using the access, other access uses that are going on at the site. And then interview boaters, why did they take action? Why don't they? Do these things help? Don't they? And you're just asking a lot of questions to really dig deeper and making sure the things that we're providing are actually being helpful and actually being effective at helping boaters remove aquatic invasive species. So evaluation, evaluation, evaluation. And with that, I'll mention just a few resources. So a lot of the things we've covered today are covered in this boat clean and drain areas document. There's a full guide online as well as some shorter guides that are available on our website, and the link is provided here. I can copy and paste those into the chat in a little bit. We also have the State's Organization for Boating Access, or SOBA. They developed these construction and integration of aquatic invasive species prevention areas at recreational boating facilities based on what Minnesota DNR put together. And Wildlife Forever just came out with this access enhancement guidebook. So if you're looking for a company to help you assess these your sites, that's where you can go for more resources there. So with that, we're on time-ish. We have a couple minutes for questions. Again, we'll have more time for discussion at the end as well. So any questions for myself or Nancy?
Thanks, Tina and Nancy. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat.
I have a quick question. Spencer McGrew here.
Yeah, Spencer.
Hey, Nancy, nice speaking with you again. We talked a few years ago about the rinse station idea on one of the DNR lakes. Anyway, what is the we just had Bruce Ansbach talk to our group about the permanence instant hot water system up at Waskish. Do you have a update on that? Because Bruce is doing it at the Beltrami County level, but what's the sort of the state level perspective on that? And then is DNR view those sort of hot water systems like the Colorado model as a path forward for the high traffic accesses across the state?
Yeah, I can take that one, Nancy. Good question, Spencer. Yes, so that is kind of the next evolution of watercraft decontamination in the state of Minnesota, is these on-demand hot water stations that are permanent stations at high use accesses. So we recently got or are working to get some federal funding to install more. I know one is going, we've got state funds to go, one to go in on Red Lake that we're working on. So if you're interested in that, let's chat, because that's a much deeper dive. But yes, that's definitely the kind of the next phase of offering decontamination services at public water accesses. And these are still staffed, professionally staffed units, providing the same level 2 watercraft inspection decontamination services, but they don't have to truck around the unit. It's positioned on site. And Bruce.
You have a question about the donation of equipment to the DNR to put on accesses?
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that a bit? I mean,
Well,
let's say I got, let's say a CD3 machine, since they're going in all over the place now for the Stop Start campaign. Well, let's say I bought a CD3 machine and donated that to the DNR. Would that make it quicker to go through than trying to get the lease agreement? How does that work?
Yes. Well, we haven't done one yet. We're working on our first one with Liz, who's on the call now. It's taken a little longer, as new things always do, right? Yeah. But as we get our feet on the ground on that, it should be a lot quicker of a process. And we still would do kind of a cooperative agreement with you, Bruce, to maintain the unit on the site, even though you are donating it to us. So yeah, we'll take anything if you want to donate it to us, and we can install it on our properties a little simpler than going through our lease process. So there's lots of different options. And so, and again, depends on the site, right? So if it doesn't, you know, it has to fit the site if that's something we're going to do. So reach out to us and we'll work with you.
Well, one of the things that I was curious about is because I remember way back when, like 2010 or something, I can't remember what county or lake association or someone wanted to donate a decon machine to the DNR, but DNR was saying they couldn't 100% guarantee to have it stay in that area.
Yeah, so we were able to work out a deal with Spencer on that a few years ago, that we were able to kind of work that out. So that is something you're interested in, definitely reach out. But I'm going to move us on to the next topic to keep us on agenda here. So I will stop sharing, and
we'll
Doug,
come back to Reed's. We'll come back to Reed's question in the chat then at the end.
And who is next on my list?
Ariana.
Hey, thanks. I'm going to go ahead and screen share. I did not get a chance to do this before the meeting, so just might take me a second here. Can you guys see that okay?
Yep, looking good.
Awesome. All right, so I'm just going to talk a bit about how Meeker County put out our AIS tool stations, kind of why we did it, and then the differences between both years, because we did this in 2021 and 2022. And then hopefully that can answer some people's questions kind of about where to get started. So in 2019, we put out a few cameras at launches, just to get an idea of what boater behavior looked like. It was a very informal kind of study to see, you know, what are people doing when inspectors aren't there? And by and large, what we found was that people were taking the proper actions for clean drain drying their boats, but they weren't always able to do that in the most effective way because they couldn't reach something, or because, you know, they had spent their time, there was too much to get off. And that kind of put it on our radar that we needed to be more aware of the issue, right? That like people are leaving launches when inspectors aren't there. They're trying, but they're not necessarily getting everything taken care of. And then at the behavior change workshop that DNR put on in 2019, there was some conversation around tool stations, kind of like what you guys just ran through, all of the different things we can do at launches to kind of help people take those measures to be compliant with statute, right? And so in 2020, Polk County actually shared a little bit about the tool stations they put out, and those two together really got us moving as far as deciding this is something that we want to do. And the big impact that made it worth it to us to pursue it was that we have a pretty healthy funds balance, but we wanted to be able to have a contingency in place for the event, the possible event of like us having to pull back inspectors or not being able to get people hired, and being able to prioritize where people were at, but then also having some sort of resource there for the public. So our first step to really getting these put out were to have, first things first, like a meeting with people who had already done it. So I met with Polk County and Ramsey County, and they shared a bit about how they did this. And we decided to put together a charter just so we had an idea from a county level of like, what is this going to take for us to really, what is this going to take for us to really pull this off? And like, how do we make this fit in line with all of our goals? And so first things first, we really wanted to make sure that we were locally sourcing our materials if we did this. We had considered and had a lot of advertising, as I'm sure many of you have had, from like CD3 for some of their tool stations. And our advisory board, county board and advisory committee were not very keen on it just because of the cost. And so we thought, well, how do we do this cheaper? And kind of where do we go? And the goal here was to be small scale so that we could have something that was replicable by our local organizations that were really involved, like lake associations or conservation clubs, and then also have them be semi-permanent. As was just mentioned, it takes a while. The permit process was the longest for us because we didn't initially pursue it as a semi-permanent structure. We were looking for options to put in a permanent structure, and that can take some time. And so we decided to have these be movable. And the diagram that's on the current slide, that's kind of what our initial idea of what we wanted was. We were thinking having a couple tools out and then some kind of method for bait disposal being addressed. We ended up not going with the bait disposal option being made available to folks because there wasn't disposal means at every launch. And so then that would have been another cost that we had to incur. So once we had everything lined up and we had approval from like the county and our board to move forward with this, we applied for a permit through DNR, and we contacted some of our local businesses, asked for quotes. Two things I would really suggest, and I'm not sure how many of them are around the state, but we have a local building supply that's a small business, and they allow us to return materials that are unused, and they kind of reimburse us per unit for whatever we return. And that helped keep our cost really low because we didn't have to buy a bunch of extra supplies or things in bulk that we weren't going to use. And then getting in touch with like a local auto body shop that did decals. That was a really cost-effective way for us to get the minimal signage that we went with done for cheap. And then also locally sourcing our labor, because we have one county staff, which is me, and our committee members weren't able to assist on this other than the one that's pictured there, which is our chair, our current chair actually, who is on the Litchfield Rotary Club. So we got in touch with Rotary. They do a lot of work in the county, and they said, yeah, we'd love to be involved. So once we got those built, we obviously had to notify a county parks department. But I think two things that would be really, like, I wish I had known in advance were contact your associations that you're gonna be placing this, if you're gonna be placing these at lakes where there are associations, because that is a huge resource for people to keep an eye out on, you know, any kind of maintenance that needs to be done. People maybe having questions about it or not understanding like that they need to leave the tools, that maybe something needs to be replaced if someone left with a tool, etc. It's, you know, just a good idea to loop people in. We even looped in our sheriffs and patrols just so that if they were on route through an area that had a station place, they knew it and they could just drive by and let us know if anything was missing. So some key differences between year 1 and 2. We had the first year built them, which is what's pictured here, a wooden backboard with a metal awning.
Ariana, we're not seeing the slide you're talking about yet.
Oh, okay. Can you see this one?
We're seeing the purple one, phase 1. At least that's what
Ooh.
I'm seeing. I don't know if that's the same. Okay.
Can you see this now?
Nope. It's still
Okay,
the.
I'm gonna stop sharing and then reshare it. I'm sorry.
Okay. No worries.
It was moving on my end. Wow, that must have seemed really off for you guys. Okay, did this load all right?
Loading.
Okay.
Not sharing yet.
That's unfortunate. I'm gonna turn my camera off and see if maybe that just speeds things up, because I know
All right.
that affect the buffering. Does that work?
Not working.
Okay. I might just email. I'm just gonna email this really quick to you then, and then maybe you can share it. I apologize, you guys, but just to kind of keep us on pace, and I'll show you guys a photo here in a second. But while I'm emailing this, our first year, we had wooden backboards that were built. I'll show you pictures of years 1 and 2, but we found that aluminum was a lot cheaper, so we went with this product called Alumalite. And that was about $130 last year for enough of it to do two sign boards per order. One moment here. Okay. So I stopped presenting. I'm just I've just emailed it over to Tina if you get that and can share it. But I'll kind of pause on going through the costs until you guys can see that slide. But just some takeaways, kind of what we found between the years was that it makes a really big difference when you're buying your tools to try to look for things that are available, like for boat cleaning supplies in a pack. So we actually got hooks and boat brushes together because of the attack. And then we didn't have to buy our U-channel post the second year. The department had it. So if your departments have good working relationships and you know there might be resources available, like take advantage of whoever you have in the county or your municipality to help you get those resources for cheaper. Can you see this yet? I just tried to share it again. Feel like the AT&T commercial. Like,
no, we can't see it yet.
Awesome.
Sorry.
That's all right. Did you?
I can share it when I get it in my email, Ariana. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm not sure why that's not coming through. I like sent it and I'm just having issues here apparently.
It is what it is, but you're doing a good job describing what you've done too. So you don't need the pictures.
Yeah, so I mean, as far as all of that's concerned, just running you guys through the cost, I guess we don't really need to see a graph or anything, but our cost for the first year was about $175 per station. We put out 5 stations, and the highest cost was actually the wood because the cost of lumber went up so much. So it was like, okay, switching to aluminum is not only going to last us a lot longer, be less maintenance, but it's going to cost a lot less. And then the cost for tools really didn't go down or up. We spent about $300 total last year on tools, and that included some replacements from the first year. We overall had a pretty good outcome as far as things going missing. We didn't have folks taking a lot of stuff. We mostly just had issues with them thinking that they needed to take them in. So as far as our associations are concerned, like communication, again, with them is super important, because if you can get them to be on the same page as far as like whose responsibility it is, then you avoid any issues with like someone from the association taking stuff in because they think that they need to. And then maybe not being able to track those tools down in the future, which is what we ran into this year. And then just reel us back here. So overall, the biggest difference between the 2 years, aside from cost, was also the ease of installation. It took 4 people to install our tool stations that were built with the wooden backboard. It took 2 people to do almost the same number of them for the aluminum signs. So it's a lot less time and labor if you're going with something that's lighter weight. The reception that we've gotten from local groups has been really good. We actually have interest from a handful of them in sponsoring their own stations. The big thing that I would recommend if you plan to do this on any kind of a large scale is just get involved with your local COLAs if there are groups that want to be active and participate, because we have very active organizations. But the first year that we suggested this as a project, they were really hesitant to take it on. Equal cost. Now that we've been able to show them this is how cheap it can be done for, and there's a process for it, and we can help make that easier, we have a pretty good outlook on getting these placed at the other high priority lakes. So for next steps, we have a community guide that we're putting out to help people in the county who are either like with an association or small business or conservation group who want to sponsor these stations to utilize the permit locations that we already have approved and the design that we already have approved to get these put throughout the county. Disposal, and that was just because we wanted to.
Mariana, you're breaking up a bit. So we're not hearing your. Mariana, we didn't quite hear the last few bits of your next steps there. You're breaking up. If you want to turn your camera off and stop sharing your screen, that might help. And we can also, once you, there's one question. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. There's one question in the chat. Yeah, I can hear you just
fine. I'm sorry about that. Can you guys?
No, you're breaking up more again, Ariana.
I'm hardlined in. Oh, Jesus. Okay.
So. Kevin, I can answer that question for you. Did they install any at DNR accesses or jointly owned DNR accesses? Yes, they did, and they worked through a special use permit, as Nancy mentioned, to get them installed at accesses. As far as the ease of that process, I'll let Ariana answer that.
Yeah, so I switched to a different, I have 2 things for internet, one for work, one for home. I just switched to my home internet, so hopefully this is more clear.
Yeah.
Can you guys see me? Okay, I apologize. So we staffed lakes, or we stationed these at lakes that we were staffing that were both DNR launches and county launches. There were 2 locations that were non-DNR launches that we put them out at, and 6 that were DNR launches. The ease of that process, I think, could have been improved just by starting off with pursuing a semi-permanent structure. So not looking for something that's permanently installed on a foundation, like again, any kind of concrete. If we just go with U-channel posts and we take them out at the end of each season, that would have made it a lot faster to get them approved. And also only requesting a permit for the locations you plan to install stations at that year would have improved it too. Okay.
Yep, and now I'm sharing your PowerPoint here with some costs if people were interested in those cost figures. So any last questions for Ariana? All right, so we'll move
There's another
on.
question. Bruce asked a question in the chat. How would building them and then donating them to the DNR, would the DNR then pick the access they would go to?
We would be open to that, Bruce, and we would be open to where those would work. Again, as long as the sites are feasible, we would probably work with you to identify the priority accesses they would want to go at. So, all right. Now I will move us on to our one more presenter before we go on. One more set of presenters before we go on break. We've got Alicia, Liz, and Garrett to talk about their bait bin projects. So we'll go until about 2:05 to make sure we still have time for this little panel here. But Alicia, I'll let you go first.
Thanks, Tina. I'm Alicia O'Hare. I'm the water resource specialist with Right Soil and Water. I'm going to share my screen real quick here just to show you what we have. We have bait compost bins. So the idea is that the bait stays on site and then they're just maintained by volunteers. For the most part, we saw good use through them, that they are getting used for bait. They do also get used for trash. But we found that if they're maintained every week or every other week, that trash stays pretty low. So it's really just don't let it snowball. And we haven't had problems with damage or anything like that. The biggest problem that we had was we had 2 carp lakes that people thought carp were bait, apparently, and they were full. It was not pleasant. The big change I'm making with this program in 2023 is I've made our volunteer survey electronic. So it will look like this. A person can fill out their name and their the date that they're there. So they just say, I'm at the Ann Lake bin. And one of the cool things is they take a picture right through the program. This is just a blank picture real quick, if it'll run through it. I just wanted to show you that, like, what it'll do is it'll actually automatically name this photo for me, so that when I download it, oh, that's a shame that it's not working. You gotta have the tech problems, but it, like, so all this data gets uploaded itself and into the internet and into the cloud. So it makes it easier for both the volunteers who don't have to compile everything and scan it to me, and on my end where I don't have to do data entries. Try one more time real quick, see if this thing will capture the picture or not. Or maybe, oh, I think I know why. It's mad because I'm already using my camera, I bet. 1 second, and then I'm gonna turn that off. Gotcha. There it goes. So you can see that it named it, and it's the front of the bin, and then there's a date stamp right on it. So it's really cool that it can do that, and that's I've already tested this with one volunteer. So we're gonna try and use that for 2023. But other than that, they work pretty well. I think they're about $170 to install. So I'll use
and
that.
how many locations did you have, Alicia?
We have 12. And I think there's 2 that are county and the rest were DNR. I have not had any problems with wildlife in this case. So I've seen a bunch of comments come in, but maybe I'll let the other panelists talk and then we can answer them as a group.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Alicia. So Liz, you want to chime in, talk about your program?
Yeah, I'm going to share my screen real quick. Hopefully real quick.
Looking good.
Get my notes back. Okay. So yeah, I shared about this project a couple of years ago when it was still a pilot. So should have more to share now that we've been running it for a couple of years. So the pilot location was at a busy Forest Service campground for a brief period in 2019 and then again in 2020. And that was through a behavior change grant. And then the Wide Area Chain of Lakes Association became aware of the bait bins and they wanted to expand the project to include the trailer accesses on their chain. So through their initiative, we expanded to 3 more accesses in 2021, then 2 more in 2022, and then in 2023, we plan to add 3 more for a total of 9. So that will cover all the busiest accesses, trailer accesses on the chain. So then some of the key partnerships in this project are the Wide Area Chain of Lakes Association. It was their kind of initiative and push to get the project going and beyond the pilot stage. And they receive grant funds from Lake County to do that. North St. Louis SWCD is a major partner. John at the district provides the program management through a contract for services with Waikola, and his interns that are supervising watercraft inspectors in the area are the ones that provide the bin maintenance. So it kind of works out because they're in the area already. And then we've been obviously working with the access administrators. There's DNR accesses, Forest Service, City of Babbitt, and City of Winton accesses that we're working with. Some of the equipment considerations, we needed it to be a rugged design. So it was hopefully it would deter bears. So open bins weren't an option for us. The Forest Service had concerns about bear activity. We wanted to limit the size of the opening to prevent too much trash contamination. The ones that we ended up going with have a lid that you lift up, and it has it prevents you from just throwing in large pieces of trash. And we provided a number to call if the bin needs maintenance, so that's on the sign. And then we had to meet the aesthetic requirements from the administrator. So the Forest Service specifically wanted wooden posts, and the DNR was fine with metal ones. So we made some adjustments based on that. In 2020, for that pilot project, we kept detailed maintenance logs using Survey 123, similar to Alicia. And we collected data on how full the bins were, how what kind of contaminants were found, the odor, general state of the bins in the surrounding area. And since then, I believe the interns have just been reporting things when there's anything noteworthy. But overall, the bins were used for their intended purpose. They're just a few kinks to work out. So we started by trying to compost the bait fish off-site, which ended up being a real challenge. That was an ambitious goal that didn't really pan out. There was too much trash contamination, and we couldn't find anyone willing to allow compost on their property except for DNR Fisheries Office. So that got panned after the first year. So we decided to throw that in the trash instead, which also opened it up to other bait like worms as well. So I think that was a good move. So yeah, we did see some trash contamination, but not a lot. And since we ended up trashing the bait anyway, that did not end up being a real concern. There were some odor issues when it was really hot, but we ended up replacing the bags more frequently, and that seemed to mostly solve that problem. There was also some water buildup because people would just dump their whole bait bucket in instead of, you know, just the fish itself. So several holes are going to be drilled in the bottom to help them drain. And then we also got some feedback that it was a little cumbersome to be dumping the minnows directly from the bucket. So we'll also be providing minnow scoops on a tether. So that should make it easier to dispose of the bait and also help alleviate some of the water issues too. Storage of bins in the off season. At first, when we just had a few, we would remove the bins in the winter and then replace them in the spring. But, you know, once the project expanded, we had too many, so we just wrapped them in plastic and left them in place. So I think that will be the ticket going forward. And then labor and funding, it wasn't an issue for us, but it could be a challenge for other folks if those things are lacking. We ended up, you know, we have grant funds available and the labor was provided by contract, but, you know, finding if you have to work with volunteers, just getting that dedicated workforce there. And, you know, we cover a significant area, so there'd be a fair amount of driving required. And just wanted to share some of the changes to the signs we made over time. So we obviously removed references to composting, included language and images illustrating what can be disposed. We simplified the design a little bit and increased the contrast so it was easier to read. So we haven't really run into any challenges that couldn't be tweaked as we went, either as we went or between seasons. And the feedback from visitors has been overwhelmingly positive, and their suggestions have been incorporated into some of the changes we've made. So I think it's a success, and I forgot to include any cost information, but I can share that in the chat or email it later too.
Thanks, Liz. I think we'll kick it right on over to Garrett.
All right. Let's see if I know how to do this. Has everyone seen this?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'm Garrett from the Comfort Lake Forest Lake Watershed District, and I obviously implemented a similar project here with bait disposal stations. So try to keep this brief. Yeah, obviously back in 2022, got the grant from the DNR, worked with them. In our application, we, we wanted to do the bait disposal thing, and we thought that partnering with two organizations that kind of overlap with our district made sense, in that we wanted there to be consistency in, quote unquote marketing, or, at least the signage that we were using, so that, well, we know from the watercraft inspection data that we're having a lot of boaters that come from our district go to the WCD area or Chisago County and vice versa. So we thought having similar bait disposal projects or stations just made sense. So we partnered on the project. The outcome was the creation of this bait disposal station here. It's the same station in both pictures, just different axes. So we made the station, an educational signage on top, and then a bait bucket sticker, which I'll get to in a second. The bin, the whole design itself is pretty simple in that it's just a dog waste disposal bin for dog parks. There's a few companies online that sell them, and if you buy them in bulk, you get a discount. So I think per unit with hardware, signpost, printing the sign and all that, it was probably 200 or less per unit. So not terrible overall. Since these were typically stationed close to the public access or where they'd be launching, just because we thought, that would be the most visible place. It'd be quick for an angler to come off the water, see that, and dispose of bait. That's where we stationed them. So it just kind of made sense that we would pair this whole thing with our watercraft inspections. So we relied pretty heavily on them for the heavy lifting part of it with education, you know, kind of pointing them out, you know, encouraging their use, and then also with the maintenance, just because they're there on the weekends when typically district staff wouldn't be, so they're able to change out the trash and refresh it and whatnot. And then in combination with that, we were also obviously doing the behavior change thing. So we were looking to get commitments, which kind of ties into the bait bucket sticker, which I have a photo of here shortly. So they were tracking commitments that they received. They were tracking the number of people who declined to make a commitment. They were tracking, I don't have the sheet here, but you know, how often the bins were used based upon how full they were with bait, if there's trash in them, if there's trash around the area, etc. And then we also borrowed from this whole project as a whole, Lake County's SWCD's document on watercraft inspection training, just to help our inspectors fit this into their normal duties, make them a little more comfortable approaching this topic, you know, asking commitments from an inspector and so on and so forth. So overall, things went pretty well, but inevitably there were some issues, and I think everybody's already described them, but a lot of trash, which we suspected would happen. However, the quantity at some points was maybe a little more than we expected, which would sometimes spill over. The worst part, though, was definitely the smell and the maggots. Our inspectors in the district were all given a ton of garbage bags, and were asked every single time they were stationed there just to change them out, even if it was not that full, not that stinky, just to change it out. That way we just got in the habit of it. But even though it was displayed on our sign, I think what a lot of time was happening was the bait bucket water was not being emptied, and it was just kind of all getting dumped in there into just a sealed bag, which was just a hot, soupy mess that would inevitably lead to fly and maggot growth, which was pretty gross, and which was a complaint from visitors, watercraft inspectors who had to deal with it, and certainly staff. So that was unfortunate. Our inspectors were poking holes in the bag to try and help with that. But certain times of the year, if it's super hot, it was just hard to avoid, even if we were stationing inspectors as often and they're cleaning it out. Another thing was the off season. In the district, we wrapped all of ours in plastic, more just to protect them from the weather, but did not really think about it in hindsight that this would attract as much attention as it did with ice or anglers and stuff in the winter. So on the left, on North Center, both these lakes in Chisago County are more remote, which I think is maybe part of the issue as well. There's not as much traffic. But anyway, someone stole the bin completely, left the sign post, which was odd. I don't know what they're going to do with the bin personally, but that's what they did. And then the other was at West Rush, with which the issue here is that there is no trash service available to come to this access. So I think anglers saw this as a trash receptacle, and then it just became kind of a hot spot just to dump everything, and someone will take care of it. So that was pretty unfortunate. I think we would probably end up just removing these out of the ground, which is a bit of a pain, especially if you want to get these secured in the ground well. Hard to pull them out, but I think that's what we'll have to do at these accesses. And yeah, wrapping them could help too, but after seeing this, I would probably avoid that. However, the big things that I am happy with were through that collaboration, the partnership with the DNR, Chisago County, the Washington Conservation District, we went through a ton of revisions with our signage, and I think the product that we did ultimately settle on, we're all happy with, was a pretty good one that we are definitely going to continue using. I think we can make some tweaks to them, which I'll get to in just one second. But yeah, we liked the graphics. It was right to the point what the law is, what we're expecting of people, and so on and so forth. So the bait bucket sticker we also created. Again, a lot of iterations, but we were happy to settle on this one. And this was both in an attempt as just a nice educational handout to give to boaters, but also a way to help get those written and verbal commitments from visitors when inspectors asked. We did definitely get some commitments. However, overall, I think there was just a lot more interest in just, oh, you have a sticker? Cool, I'll take one of those, which fine enough. We'll take that too. So this has been very popular on our busiest days of the year, especially holidays, where we're already giving out a bunch of handouts. So we've gotten a lot of good feedback with this. It was designed in mind to be on a bait bucket, but we've seen them slapped everywhere. So we're happy enough with that. So quickly, just some improvements that we're thinking about coming into this next watercraft inspection season. One, the maggot issue, which it was pretty gross and definitely makes it hard for our inspectors to want to deal with that. Is just like a product by Taro, a pretty common bug repellent company. I haven't used it yet myself, but I was just looking for options online, and it's just a puck that you stick on the bottom of the lid of our bait disposal stations, or even a trash can, just to help keep the maggots at bay and flies and whatnot. Wouldn't help with the smell, I don't think, but at least we can, knock out one of the two issues that we had, potentially. The other change is a lot of our accesses, the bait disposal station is right next to a trash can. So in hindsight, maybe these sites would have been better off with just an educational sign just saying, put it right in the trash, because then we're not relying and hoping that our watercraft inspectors are changing them out, bringing them to a trash can somewhere, which typically there's one close by. But we just don't have to rely on them to do that. The trash service arrives on a certain day every single week. It will be picked up. There's nothing to worry about. It already stinks, and it's typically away from the access where most people are going to congregate. So we think probably for some of our accesses, this is the way to go. The one downside is obviously that it's not going to be as visible in a lot of locations. For instance, one of our accesses, like the restroom and recycling and trash and everything, it is on the other side of the road. So they have to pull across, see that, and then use it. Whereas these bins would typically be right at the launch. So some things for us to think through, but overall we're fairly happy with how things have went, and we're just looking to make some minor tweaks to keep things moving along. So
Thanks, Garrett.
Did I stop? Okay, yeah, thanks.
One question on, from Kevin, did you get permission from Adam Dahl to have the inspectors deal with the bait?
I believe it was at the beginning of the year, you have that inspection plan, and I did a whole type up of what we were intending to include in the inspector's work plan, and that was one of the items, and I don't think there was any issue with that.
Yep, that sounds right to me as well. Put it right in that inspection plan and you're good to go. All right, so we are a little bit behind, but I do want to have some discussion with our three presenters about bait bins. They've provided some good, challenges, examples of challenges and potential solutions to some of the things that you've seen here. So Drew, I see you have a question. Go for it.
Yeah, it's actually a little bit more of a comment. I'll try to be quick here. I just wanted to share some of the ideas that we had here in Carver County for bait bins. We haven't actually tried them yet, but there were a few ideas that we came up with that would maybe help with the waste removal and also keeping trash out. So first idea was, I worked with one of our environmentalists over in our environmental services department who kind of coordinates all of the county's trash pickup. And she ended up having a pretty close relationship with the vendor, and she asked them about it. And they basically said that if any of the accesses are kind of within their route, they would just do it. They wouldn't even have to pay for it. So that was awesome. But again, we haven't tried it. And the other quick ideas were, we get trash thrown in every kind of bin we have anywhere in our parks, anywhere, just because I think we're closer to the metro. I kind of came up with an idea. I know that a lot of these bait bins have kind of mesh on like the bottom and on the sides. I tried to think if we could just kind of put another kind of mesh on top that only small bait fish would fit through, and then that may deter people from throwing trash and carp and stuff like that in it. And then kind of another idea on the same idea is to I can't remember where I saw them. It was in a lab somewhere, but they're just plastic tops for trash cans that are actually little funnels. That might be an idea too for smaller bait fish, but we haven't tried this. We haven't, looked into how problematic this would be. Just thought I would share.
Thanks, Drew.
Thanks.
And Cole had a mention in the chat about kind of lessons learned and a report on what went well and what didn't. And that is actually part of the requirement for all of these behavior change grants that did bait disposal. So they are all posted on our website, and I'll put the link in the chat.
And I'll just draw people's attention to the chat. There's been some really good discussion about access to bins and also the smell and compost. So there's been back and forth with question and answers there. If any of our speakers have anything else they'd like to comment on, please put those in the chat.
Yeah, and so and if any of you try any of these things or are interested in trying, obviously reach out to these individuals that have already tried some things. And obviously the DNR staff are also happy to talk about best practices because, with working with Nancy and all the Parks and Trails staff that have lots of experience dealing with on-site issues, we can find something that kind of works. But it was really helpful to see kind of these evaluation pieces on the contamination and other challenges that came along with providing bait bins at the accesses. It's very enlightening to see all of that information come through. So thank you all for your work on that. With that, I will say that we should take a break and come back at 2:20. So we'll be about 10 minutes behind schedule, but that's still fine because we have time for both the last two presentations, working with resorts and the AIS Explorer updates. So we'll take a break. Everyone stand up, move away from your screen, and we'll see you in about 8 minutes. All right, it's 2:20. Hope everyone's getting settled back at their screens for the last 40 minutes of this workshop. We've got three more presenters, 2 more topics to discuss today. And then I have a feeling our discussion can go a little bit past 3. So I know that others have things to get to by 3 p.m., but if you're able to stick around after, Doug and I would be happy to facilitate further discussion beyond 3 p.m. today. So with that, I see Bill is on, and Dana, are you also ready?
Yeah, I think I'll be going first.
Okay, perfect. So, and I see you've already stolen the screen share, Bill, so you're ready to go. Excellent.
Moving along.
So no rush at all. You still have the same amount of time as I mentioned earlier. So about 7.5 minutes each with 5 minutes for discussion. So
okay. Dana,
take it away.
Dana, I just started my timer. I have 4 minutes and 50 seconds left.
Okay.
I am Bill Granchis. This is kind of more of an update than it is on anything really new. Anything I'm talking about here as far as forms or handouts that I have for resorts, that's a QR code there on the screen. You can just hit it and that will take you to a public folder where all those different things are. With this program, we've been doing this now off and on, well, not off and on, but probably for about 6 years. And it started with our 5-star resort project. And what we've really learned and what we're trying to do is to keep this a trust-based relationship building activity. And we want to raise AIS awareness and quality of AIS safeguards. That's basically our 5-star model. Things we found out, there are no cookie cutter solutions. Every single resort's an individual and had really varying results on how things different work. Mass mailings do not work. File 13, that's either that or birdcage is probably where they end up lying. They just plain old don't work, yet I still do it. Every year I send out, I just did a mailing to 110 resorts and VRBOs. And I might hear back every year from about maybe 5. Face-to-face friendly conversation about the lakes, that's the way it gets done. And it can't really be forced. You have to let the conversation provide the opportunities to offer a service and materials. Don't ever ask for anything. It's like, oh, what we'd really like you to do is, don't do that. Really need to offer something of value. So with that in mind, what do we offer? One thing we found that's very popular is a binder insert that's basically for AIS. It's just real short and sweet. It's 4 pages. A lot of resorts have binders. It's just a very simple AIS ID sheet with AIS that we're concerned with here. And then, of course, ending with the standard. I think just about every county's got their own version of this last page of this thing here. That's been very popular. Flyers for the guests we also have that have been very popular with resorts, and that's a real basic one here. We love QR codes here, and I've been very fortunate to have Deer Lake Association and John Davis as a partner in all this. So a lot of this has been, we do a trial version on Deer, and then if it works, which usually they do, then we use it throughout the county. So, oops, there we go. What did I just do? Okay, I'm getting too fast with my thing here. So that's also been a very popular handout. And of course, if you haven't already done so, I highly recommend that you go out and buy as many of the AIS ID books as you can. Yeah, I think they're $47 a pop now. I think you could buy them in bulk, you get them for a little bit less. But I've yet to find anyone that you give these to, either at a show or a county fair or a boat lift landing or one of your inspectors or a resort owner, that don't love them. These books are fantastic, and I think they're well worth the investment. Wash stations. This is, everybody's got their own version. Here's mine. We started doing this last year, and we got these out on 10 resorts in the Sand Lake up there in the Max area. Basically, it's a hose reel cart with 25 feet of hose, or is it 50? A heavy-duty nozzle, long handle brush, a sponge, some plastic scrapers like we have in most of our kits. Some kind of a picker. I show a weed stick here. You can do a weed stick. They're a little bit pricier than what you can do for yourselves. By the way, most of my inspectors like to use a broken fishing pole because it's flexible and you can flick the tip on the end of it. And last but not least, a brush that you can use for scrubbing down the hull. And just lump these all together and you say, here, resort owner, put these where your people can use them to wash off their boats. And some people are like, oh, gee, thanks. And others need to be convinced that cold water and rinse can actually do something to reduce the spread of AIS, but it absolutely positively can. Working up a cost estimate, typically I'm around $172 per, but then when you add in signage, well, it depends on your signage. And as we've heard from other people doing signage, it depends on what you use. I have budgeted roughly $125 for each sign. So with that, you're looking at maybe around $300 per wash station. So we do it in a targeted way to resorts that we have had meaningful conversations with. Oh no, my alarm just went off. Dana, I have to take more time. I'm sorry, you're going to kill me. Okay. Okay. So to wrap up, really your best resources, mine anyway, are our watercraft inspectors. They're the ones that are meeting these resort owners and resort guests and just casual conversation. Fishing guides that believe in your program, they'll say, oh, I was just talking to such and such over at Winnie Lodge, and you really need to get over there and talk to them. That's my best secret weapon. It's not. It's my best successes have been when I don't do the actual talking. I find people that are daily talking to these people. So, all right, Dana, that's it. You're up. Oh, I have to stop sharing, don't I? Oh, crud. That means I have to find that screen. Oh, hang on.
And I think Dana can just steal it from you too.
Yep, that should do
I'll
it.
try that. I'm going to turn my camera off because I don't trust my internet.
Mm-hmm.
It worked great in practice.
I know, it's the pressure.
Yeah, all I can share is our own screen or there we go. All right.
Beautiful.
Looking good.
So I'm Dana from Cass County, SWCD, and I'll talk a little bit about just kind of the resort work I've already done, and then a new project we have is the Dock Harbor. So like Bill said, you got to find ways to connect with the resorts. Drop-ins honestly has been one of the best methods that I've had. Not on a Saturday when they're doing their switchovers, but during the week when they're a little bit slower. That 9 to noon before their guests are out asking them a bunch of questions is helpful too. I've had some not great luck with phone calls, emails, even if they've responded in the past and said they're interested in learning more or staying in touch about AIS. I get about 1 email back out of 18. So the drop-ins have really been the best way, especially for me to establish a relationship. I've only been in this role for 2 years now. So now that they know me, they certainly respond to emails and phone calls and other things, but it was a little bit rough getting to know them that way. Local chamber events has also been really huge for me. I'm actually doing a resort buyers show the next 2 days, and I've got to know a lot of the resorts in the area from dropping in on them. Then they see me at the resort buyers show. They do a resort night in the spring where the resorts can pick up all kinds of information to hand out to their guests. So I try to be present with the chamber for that event too. So highly recommend checking in with your local chamber. I already kind of said drop-ins really work best for me especially if I'm offering AIS monitoring or handouts. It just, if I call, I don't get a call back, but if I drop in, they say, oh, sure. And they're usually just disappointed with the size of my rake. So I think I'm going to take out all the vegetation in the harbor for them. And then, so when working with resorts, we're really selling a product. They understand when things will benefit them. So financially, if you're talking about doing some AIS monitoring in their harbor, if you find starry stonewort, if you find Eurasian water milfoil, curly-leaf pondweed, if they're having problems with that nuisance vegetation, we all know the earlier we have the detection, the better. And that's the same for the resorts. They are interested in protecting the resources, the fisheries, the recreational boating opportunities, tourism in general. These are important things for them, and being partners in the community. With Anderson's Cove Resort having the starry stonewort, I was a little nervous to see how they would react with managing it and further discussions with it. And they've been like, no, let's get a CD3 up here. Let's get an article in the newspaper. People need to know what's going on. Like, they've really been a really nice partner, and it's been really pleasant to see that they have that interest in the resort, in the lakes. And I think all the resorts really do. Whether or not they have time to put towards it might be a different issue, and they might need some education too. But my experience, they've been pretty good to work with. Like Bill said, having something to offer them. So we do these little half sheets identification cards. This is a poster that we had made. Some towels, bait bags. A lot of the resorts actually have bait on hand for the boaters. So giving them the bait bags with the "Don't Let Them Loose" logo on them. Posters, I laminate them for their fish cleaning stations, but anything you can kind of get waterproofed, that's a really popular one that the resorts have liked, is just having something in the fish cleaning stations. The DNR resort letter has been something I've given out quite a bit of. And then even going in with the Stop Aquatic Hitchhiker sign. So talk to your local DNR AIS specialist to see if they have any extras that you can make sure you provide paperwork for, and possibly be offering those to the resorts as well. They like the signage too. Make it easy for the resorts. They are busy. So I got Bill's QR code. You can scan it to take you right to the DNR website where you can download this resort letter, doctor it up. I've made this one for Little Boy Resort because they came by my booth and then I emailed it to them. So they can still adjust it, do what they want, but just trying to make it really easy for the resorts to share the information. Being that I'm selling a product here, I save all my contacts. I label them all in the resort so that I can easily search and find that resort owner's name. The chamber's been really good at knowing a lot of the resorts, the owners' names, the information. DNR Fisheries was a surprising source for me. So talk to your local fisheries. They get a lot of questions and concerns from resorts, so they might have some really nice contact information for you that they can share too. I'm always prepared with my business card. I don't keep it in my wallet. I'm more likely to leave home without my wallet than my phone. So know yourself best. Have that information to share with the resort you're working with. And then our Adopt a Harbor program, it's new this year. I have met with one resort on it and they signed up. So I'm super hopeful that we get some more participation. I'll be selling it at that resort show I'm at tomorrow. But we're just looking for the resorts to either pledge that they are willing to have their accesses inspected for AIS, and we're talking just breakthrows, just like the AIS detector course, or that they actually want to learn some basic identification and pretty much volunteer themselves to adopt their own harbor and do those inspections. I'm going to be asking for them to be looking twice a year. And that really has been prompted by the starry stonewort being found in a resort harbor. It could have been caught earlier had we had eyes at the resort looking. So I'm pretty excited to see what the response is for that program. Oh yeah, there's just kind of the write-up on it that I'll be sharing. Then hoping to get them doing, this is just another survey 1, 2, 3, really basic info. What lake they're on, is it public access or the resort? Did they find something? And then this was originally going to be geared more towards the detectors, but we're just going to have a positive or unknown, and the resorts will be able to upload a photo and then we can investigate further if need be. So really easy for them to do, and I hope that it will work well. Then we can get some little points on the map to see where they've inspected. That is all I have.
Thanks, Dana and Bill. I see Bill has already answered a question in the chat. I didn't see any other ones come through, right, Doug? Yeah, okay. Questions about working with resorts?
I've got a follow-up for Bill.
Yeah.
Bill, I asked Bill if the wash stations are given to the resorts or just remain county property and they use them, and he said that they actually give them, and I think that's great. My question is, how do you kind of skirt the kind of liability issues with that? I just feel like my county would be like, oh great, someone's gonna get shot in the foot with a pressure washer or something, you know.
Well, it's a garden hose. And
Oh, okay.
how dare you use the L word? Yeah, that's a concern, but it has not been an issue here. It is, it's property of the resort owner. I don't see that, and I'm sure somebody legally is going to challenge me on this, but I don't see as how I am liable then, since it is given to them to use on
Okay.
their property by
I
their
was just
guests.
curious.
But it's a good concern.
We have a very I don't know, I guess I should say very good risk department. So they're always following up on things like that. Thanks.
Right, but if anybody knows, I'd be interested if somebody gets back to me on that. If you don't own it and you give it to someone and they use it, I mean, are you liable if little Johnny uses it and does something stupid? I would think not, but then I don't know. That's a really good question. If anybody knows, please get back to me. Yeah.
Lots of shrugs going on, I think.
I hope not. I really hope not.
Yeah.
Liability issues have stopped so many projects and so many ideas dead in their tracks, usually for good reason, but that was one of the ideas of why we give it instead of saying, well, here, this is for you to use.
We are working on liability forms for our Adopt a Harbor volunteers and kind of a right of entry type form to have the resort sign off to let the volunteers at their private resort.
Right. Now the 24-hour day hot water, high pressure wash stations, there's lots of liability issues, and only highly trained people that sign waivers get to use those. And that's just a pilot program we're getting ready to start this year.
Amanda.
Just to tag on to this, I was trying to share it in the chat, but I have MOU with private accesses that has been approved by our county attorney. And it's simple, but it's very robust and covers anything that could happen if you give property to someone else.
Ah, well, excellent. So if you're looking for examples, contact Amanda.
I will definitely be in touch. Thank you.
All right. Well, we're on to our last presenter for this afternoon. Alex, go ahead.
All right. Let me go ahead. Everyone can hear me all right, correct?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right. And everybody can see a browser window now open, hopefully. Okay.
Yep.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for the invite. I'm probably a new face to some of you, so I'll just sort of repeat here that my name is Alex Badges, and I'm the new staff quantitative ecologist at MASERC, the Minnesota Aquatic Invasive Species Research Center here at the University of Minnesota. And you can think of me as a data scientist. My job is to support everything that our center does with respect to study design and data and statistics and computation. And in that light, I'm happy today to be sharing that a few new tabs are coming very soon to AIS Explorer, which is our flagship online resource for AIS managers. Hopefully many of you are already familiar with it, but if you are not, the idea of AIS Explorer is to put as much information at the fingertips of managers as we possibly can as they go to allocate effort to prevention strategies. And these two new tabs are going to contribute directly to that. Now, as folks who know AIS Explorer probably already appreciate, 10 minutes is not a whole lot of time to show you even one tab on AIS Explorer, let alone two, but I'm going to do my best. I'm going to just sort of sprint through here, show you the highlights. If you have questions, I can try to answer them in the Q&A or via email. I'll put my email address in the chat. Plus, I'll note that in March, we are planning full workshops to formally debut both of these tabs. So I want you to consider this to be just sort of a teaser and that more is coming here very soon. So the first tab that I'm going to be discussing is the Intervention Impact tab, which is the one that I have open here. Like our other two tabs, it asks, at what lakes should we be placing or prioritizing spread mitigation efforts at? However, unlike the two tabs we have up there now, it does so a little differently. First, it takes a comparative approach. It kind of asks how much better is doing this versus doing that, or versus doing nothing at all. Second, it uses a simulation modeling approach to make predictions instead of a statistical model. This allows us to explore in greater detail the consequence of chance events, which, what happens early really affects what can happen later. And that's kind of something that simulation modeling is uniquely prepared to handle. And third, it considers a longer time frame. The other two tabs kind of think about what we should be maybe doing now. This actually considers risk over a 5-year period using that simulation approach. So that's another difference. So because of that different approach that this tab takes, it's actually going to need two things from you that the other two tabs we have right now do not need. The first is some time. It actually takes 10 to 20 minutes for the simulation to actually run. But the good news is that you do not need to wait around because it will email you your results when it is done. And you can set up a second or a third or a fourth run while you wait. So that's not a huge, I think, requirement. The other thing, though, that it needs is inputs. It needs to know how to run the simulation. So it needs to know what your proposed plan is. It also needs to know how you think the plan and the system around the plan are going to work so it can do the simulation successfully. So what I want to do here is really quickly walk through that input process using the test version of the app here, just to show you what it looks like and kind of what questions it's going to ask. And I'll note that the version I'm showing you here is not the final version. This is just a test version that's up. So just keep that in mind that what you're looking at here is still a work in progress. You'll notice there's 5 tabs here, and on this first tab that you land on, the main thing that you're going to be specifying is what we call your focal lakes. These are the ones that you're going to be intervening at in your plan. And for simplicity, I'm actually going to do something here that's pretty unrealistic.
Sooner than later.
I hear someone talking. That isn't me. Is somebody not muted? Sorry. Oh, okay, there we go. Sorry about that. So I actually did something here for just demonstration purposes that I recognize is super unrealistic. I've just gone to Cass County and I've selected every single lake in Cass County and moved it over into my focal lake. So this will be simulating me intervening on every single lake in Cass County, which I realize is not realistic, but it's useful for a demonstration. So I'll go ahead and hit next and I'll come to this second tab. And this is maybe the most interesting and challenging of the 5 tabs. I think we would recognize that. This is where we need to specify our effort, which we would define as sort of how hard we are doing in each intervention at each lake. And you'll notice that the simulation model actually considers that you could be simulating a mixture of 3 different kinds of interventions at your lakes: inspections, decontaminations, and education and outreach. And we actually have to set an effort for each of these. Now you'll see here that the app thinks about effort in terms of percentages of boats. So we need to be thinking in that way too. And you'll see that there's a lot of text boxes and tooltips here to help us do that. For demonstration purposes, I've just set some really arbitrary efforts here. 10% of boats being inspected, 0.5% of boats being deconned, 25% of boaters being educated. And then I can go ahead and hit the supply button. What that does is apply those efforts down to every single one of my focal lakes. But down here now I can customize those effort levels by lake if I want to. So if I know this lake is particularly busy and my effort's going to be high there, I can turn it up, which maybe means I don't have the time to do as much effort here. And maybe I'm doing a special outreach event or I've just put in a new sign here. And so I can raise that number here. So I can do a lot of customization on this tab. And once I'm satisfied with the amount of customization I've done, I can go ahead and hit next and go to the third tab, which will look similar, except on this third tab, what we are specifying instead is effectiveness. How good at mitigating risk spread do we think these interventions are going to be? And in the final version of the app that's going to go live, we're actually going to have MACERC research data on effectiveness plugged into this tab so that you'll be able to choose numbers that are informed by our research. But now here I'm just sort of saying that I think all of these interventions are equally and pretty effective, 80% effective. And I can apply those values to every lake. I could customize them down here, but I'm not going to for the sake of time. And then I'll arrive at this fourth tab, which is about costs. And for the sake of time, I'm going to skip it entirely here. But the idea of this tab is to just make sure, A, that your plan is realistic. If you tried to do it, you could actually afford it. And also to sort of explore cost effectiveness relative to other plans. So I'm going to go ahead and skip this tab entirely. And this fifth tab is just a summary of the inputs I've put in case I want to double check my work. So then I can come down here and hit the submit button, and I will be prompted to provide an email address where this report is going to be sent. And I can give this particular run a nickname if I want to. And then I can go ahead and hit run, and off it goes to the servers to be run. And I can start a new scenario if I want to. And just really quick, I want to show you one of these reports that you're going to get sent to you via your email, because I think these are really cool. It summarizes the results in tabular form, in graphic form, and in map form, as well as in Word form. And one of the things that I think is really cool about this is all these charts and graphs are interactable. You actually get hovers here with further information. So it's a really engaging way of checking out the results that you get back from these simulations. So that's this new resource. In my final couple of minutes here, I'm just going to show you very quickly the other resource that we're going to be adding. And it's actually it's two sub tabs that are being added to the prioritization tab. It's the collaborations and paired planning sub tabs. The idea of these two tabs is to sort of ask, should what I do depend on what I think or know others around me are also doing? So, for example, I've got these two diagrams up here, and what these are showing is that Hennepin and Carver counties happen to have a lot of lakes where there is boat traffic that's moving across county lines that could be bringing AIS from one county to another. But it actually turns out that for at least that pairing, a lot of that traffic revolves around one lake, which is Lake Minnetonka, which is maybe not terribly surprising. So if I'm Carver, when I am going to decide what I might do, maybe I should be thinking about what I assume or know Hennepin is up to at Minnetonka, because that might affect what I then think might be the best course of action for me. Meanwhile, Hennepin County might be interested in thinking about what Cass is doing at Gull and Leech Lakes, for example, and so on and so forth. So this tab is really designed to explore these reciprocal relationships between pairs of counties. And one particular way that it does this is by providing this paired planning subtab. Here, what we can do is select any two counties, say Hennepin and Carver, and what you get is sort of the default optimized, here's where you should allocate your resources by lake for each county. Then you can go in and actually mock place inspectors at lakes in the first county and see how that actually changes the optimal strategy in the second county based on what you now know that the first county is doing. So you can sort of game out alternative situations about what you think others around you may be up to. So that's my time. And I know that was an extremely whirlwindy tour of these resources, but hopefully it gives you sort of a taste of what's coming from us and what these resources could hopefully do for you.
Thanks for those teasers, Alex.
Yeah.
Any questions for Alex? Guessing a lot of us are like, we're just really excited to see more. But yeah,
Yeah.
Doug, Bill, were you gonna ask a question? Go for it.
Yeah, real quick. Other than me sitting here going, wow, that's cool. How do we know what our counties are doing, or these other counties are doing, besides giving them a call or sending them an email? Is there a resource that tells us that information?
Not that we are aware of, but that's part of I think what the impetus for this research was. And I shouldn't speak for the researchers because I was not there when those conversations were happening. But my sense is that we wanted to explore, is there a potential benefit to be had from those conversations happening? We are not aware of any such resource where you can find out what other counties are up to. But what other counties are up to probably could have an impact, we would imagine, on what would be the optimal strategy that you should then take. And so we wanted to start building tools where we could at least start exploring that in a hypothetical place, to see what that might mean at a practical level.
And one resource might be, Bill, is the statewide data for watercraft inspection. You can go through and sort that any way that you want and see where one county had inspections and all of that stuff too. So that's potentially one data source that you could use, but the one-on-one conversations is really what we're all about and what's really needed. And so now you know a little bit more about who specifically you would need to talk in more detail with, which is really interesting, and how you can benefit one another, which is really valuable information.
Just real quick follow-up, Alex, I really appreciate the continual improvement in AIS Explorer. It's just every year keeps getting better. I was a critic at first, but now I'm a fan. So I really appreciate the time, effort, and resources that MASERC's putting into this.
Thank you. Well, and you can see the commitment living and breathing in front of you. They have hired a quantitative ecologist whose part of his full-time responsibilities are thinking about AIS Explorer and what it can do and what more we can have it do and how we can improve it. So speaking to your point directly, if there are things that rub you the wrong way about AIS Explorer, I'm the person who you should be sending those comments to.
Now you tell me. No, this was years ago.
Tina, there are a couple questions for Alex in the chat.
Go for it, Doug.
The first one is from Ariana. Alex, is there an expected release date for the new version?
Yes. The hope was that it would actually be this week. It's that soon that we're talking about. It's just that Epi Interactive, who are our partners who are in New Zealand, are trying to do our last minute requests, and they ran into something that's proving more difficult to actually achieve than we thought. So I'm actually meeting with them. Well, I'm supposed to be meeting them with them at 3, but I will be a little late if I need to be, which is fine. But I'll probably get an update in that meeting and would be able to pass along. But it's soon that these 2 tabs will be interactable and just in AIS Explorer when you get there.
That's great. Amanda asks a question. It's got 2 thumbs up, so it's got interest by other parties. Is there a date when the inspection data will be updated from 2017?
Yes, I'm having a meeting with Amy Kinsley about that soon. It sounds like I am going to be playing a sizable role in trying to figure out how to plug those data in. So I don't have a specific timetable to report at this time because I don't know what I'm about to get myself into. But when I do, I will be, if you follow up with me, I will hopefully have some insight on that in a week or 2.
Thank you, Alex. I know it's going to be a big task, but it'll be very much appreciated by all of us.
Yeah, I think it is overdue, but it's coming. There are concrete plans in the works. I opened the data set for the first time like 2 or 3 days ago, so I've at least seen it, and I didn't immediately go pale. So that was always a good sign.
That
I
is a
just
good
draw everybody's
sign.
attention that there are some other questions and answers provided in the chat.
Yep. I think one I'll call out is Magder with MASERC mentioned that they've been discussing facilitating some small group sessions with county managers in a collaboration network while we're refining all of this. So that's helpful to know as well. Thanks, Meg. And thanks, Alex. And thanks all of our presenters. We did it. And we're still 5 minutes before the end, the official end of this meeting. What I would like to do now first is if everyone could turn on their cameras if you're willing and able to do that, because I would like to take a screenshot of everyone that's attending the meeting, because it's just amazing to see. We had at least 73 people online at one point today for our meeting, which is just amazing. I'm trying to see if I can get a large gallery view going here.
Say when you're going to do it so I don't blink.
All right, everyone make a really funny face. And yeah, I'll take a screenshot in just In 3, 2, 1. All right, I think I got it. Thanks for humoring me, everyone, on that. And yeah, so we do only have, 5 more minutes left of our meeting. But I would like to have everyone, oh, someone else is presenting right now. See if I got the screenshot. I got the screenshot, so we're good. Yes, so I want to say thank you for everyone for attending. If you can stick around past 3, we'd be happy to continue all of these discussions about any work at public water accesses or private water accesses for that matter. So stick around if you can. And again, this meeting is being recorded. So if you can't stick around, you'll be able to view those conversations later. So with that, I'll say, were there any big outstanding questions that we wanted to get back to Doug from previous presenters?
I think most, if not all, have been answered. I'm scrolling through. Perhaps if someone has a question quickly, just take yourself off mute and ask the question.
Yeah.
Did we ever answer Reed's question from the very beginning? I don't even know if he's here anymore.
And what was that question? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
Okay. Well, I can scroll up.
I'm scrolling up too.
I think it was about funding sources.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Reed's question was, is there money or grants available to pay for these items, or are counties or groups on their own? And that was in reference to, I believe, the signs and tools and other activities at Public Water Accesses, right after Ariana's presentation. And there were some good mentions in the chat that your county could potentially take advantage of the American Rescue Plan funding. Aquatic invasive species is eligible. Right now, I'm not aware of any state grants that provide funding for that type of work. Others aware of, let's see, yeah, others aware of funding sources for infrastructure at water accesses?
I suppose you could look into that new state legacy partners, not CPL, but they're calling it state legacy partners fund pilot program. It is administered by Bowser. They're funding in-lake management things, and they may even be open to doing something at public accesses. It's a very, very new thing, but yeah, today is actually this year's deadline. So.
Oh. Well, next year then, if that's a possibility. Any other knowledge of other funding sources besides the county AIS prevention aid that could be done?
Sure, Tina. Spencer here. I believe not necessarily for us because we've got such a large AIS budget with the state aid, but one watershed, one plan money can potentially be AIS dollars. But you'll have to go to those. You'll have to be part of that one watershed, one plan, and it'll have to be written into the plan. So for us, AIS is written into our one watershed, one plan. But we've got all sorts of other priorities that money's going to go to. But it's important to make sure that AIS, if you want to use that one watershed, one plan money, it's got to be written into the plan.
Just to follow that up, Spencer, a lot of those grants need feasibility studies before they'll do an implementation. So I don't know if you guys were required to do that or not, but I know that's kind of a thing with Bowser.
For sure.
I see that Bruce has his hand up.
Hi. At the beginning of the meeting, you mentioned that the DNR was going through their sign manual. How far along is that? Because I heard that like a few years ago too, I think. Maybe they were thinking about it then, but now they're doing it.
Now we're doing it. I am one of the members of the team that is redoing that manual. So Right now, we are starting to draft chapters of that chapter. So we are in the writing phase and working through requirements with the Minnesota Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices. We have to follow those DOT standards for our signage on roadways and for vehicles. And then we're also, need to match our signage with the brand standards that the state has as a whole, and as well as the brand standards that the agency has. So it's quite the navigation of things, but eventually we're going to come to a place that has very consistent, clear, visitor-friendly signs. So it will take a few more years for sure. I have a feeling, but it's on its way.
Yeah, I have a feeling that the Chippewa National Forest is waiting for that to be done, because I was working with some people that live on a lake that has infested water. It's an infested water, and they want some better signage, and they're willing to take care of it. But Brandon, it's a Chippewa Forest access, and they said they want to review the signage, especially with all the DNR signage.
Yep.
And so I have a feeling they're waiting on you guys to finish this sign review for me. So
yeah, and in the interim, there are ways to get new signs at accesses.
Yeah,
So waiting isn't necessarily necessary. So if you want to set up a meeting with us to kind of talk through some stuff, we'd be happy to do that.
Well, this is access in the Chippewa National Forest, so I may open up the thing again and mention that you guys might be a couple of years out before you get that manual done. So maybe they will, because I think they heard about that and they were waiting for that to come out. If they know that it's not going to be for a couple of years, maybe they will go along with me to figure out how to put a sign up there for the notifications. So
sounds good.
Thanks.
I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat.
If there's still people on, I'll take advantage of the silence to say there's been a group of coordinators kind of talking about doing a big bulk order for grabbers. If you're interested in getting in on that, I think it's $100 a case minimum. I can share information, but we're looking to have a clean, drain, dry message on them. I know a lot of counties do like towels and stuff, so we're looking at giving boaters tools to take with them this year. So I'll drop my email in the chat, but let me know if you're interested and I'll send you more information. The more we have order, the cheaper they are.
Dana, was that grabber number 2?
I'll be emailing you.
I don't know if we have a consensus on the grabbers yet. I have a vote for grabber number 2 and then no other votes, so.
Yeah, well, give me a vote for grabber number 2.
Okay, sounds good. Grabber number 2 is winning. They're about $3 a piece actually, so really reasonable.
So, and then you said how many come in a $100 bundle? Let's see, at $3 it'd be.
Yeah, 100 quantity case is the minimum that we can ship. Quantity. So then it'd be $300 is kind of the minimum order. There will be some shipping costs, but we won't have a better idea until we know how many orders we're getting. But Bruce, we're ordering them from Beltrami, so you'll just hand deliver them all to us, right?
Sure.
But your shipping should be free. I imagine you can pick them up.
Yeah. Are you doing it from Skeeter?
Yeah.
Yep. And that's what he did last time we did it. Order 2 is basically he didn't even do shipping because everyone just picked it up since it was me, Clearwater, and Lake of the Woods. So didn't really have far to go. I guess let's go to the woods is kind of far, but so okay.
Yeah, you said you'd worked well with them before, so they seem good. So why shop around? The pricing's good too. I did shop around on that.
Dana Carl said that he'll take a case in the chat.
Okay.
Yeah, Carl with Becker County.
All righty.
Bruce, is
You've
your
already got
office in Bemidji?
And looks like Spencer
was
wants
that?
some too.
All right.
What'd you say, Bill?
I was wondering, is your office in Bemidji?
Yes. Yeah, it is. It's in a
Love it.
county administration building. So,
Why don't you just say everybody picks them up there and we'll all buy you a beer when we do it?
well, you could. So
There you go.
I do. I'd probably actually sounds like we're gonna get quite a few, doesn't it, Dana?
Yeah, I think at least you, me, and maybe hopefully Bill are bigger orderers, maybe.
Yep.
I think Aitken was maybe in for a larger order,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
hopefully we get
budget-
some of these other guys too.
My
So if
budget was just
Skeeter
approved
can't-
Douglas
yesterday.
wants one too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because Skeeter
Alright.
Stitch is just down the road, like not even a mile, I don't think.
Yeah.
But if it's too many, we can easily store them out at my storage shed, right next to the decon unit, and then just have people pick them up there if we don't want to have them shipped out. So
Yeah, that
we
sounds
have
good.
a lot of room in there, especially
And
if
I
I go
know-
to the back room. Then we even have more room.
Okay.
Okay.
I know we can get some out to Itasca and some fun ways and Crowing if they're interested. I'll send my dad home to Elk River with some if anyone wants to pick them up there.
Yeah,
We're having a workshop.
I was thinking the workshop, but I don't
Yep.
think we'll have them in time for that.
Oh, okay.
When is that workshop?
March 22nd in Brainerd.
Oh, if we get going, we might be able to do that.
Yeah, Dana, this is Kyle from Aiken. Do you know when you're trying to get that order in?
No.
Okay.
Today I figured I'd put the word out to everyone and see if we get some email response, but maybe I should just email the whole AIS coordinators list. We have that. That's
You
a
do.
possibility, right?
Yep.
Okay. Do you want to send me that list or a link for it?
Sure can.
We'll see if we get some responses and get moving on it.
Yeah, I'm trying to kind of encourage as many as possible to give those out at the landings. And the last meeting that we had got off topic and didn't get a lot of
Gee, that never happens.
right. So I wasn't able to really go over that the grabbers enough, but that was something I really think is important and I want to get as many as I can. So but our next meeting's on the 27th, so I just want to make sure this wasn't going to happen sooner than that. Otherwise I'd just say beg for forgiveness and order a couple $1,000s worth of grabbers and hope no one scolds me too hard.
Yeah. How many registered watercraft owners are there in the state of Minnesota? I think Doug, you would know that.
825,000.
Yeah, but not all of those people need a grabber.
No.
Oh, yes, they do, Bruce.
Yeah. So what happened is I kind of got upset after this guy was talking to me, complaining about all these rules and stuff that the DNR has for doing access things. And I told him what kind of tools are out there, and he complained about it. I'm going, well, you're using the resource. You should be a responsible user, and you should go out and get these things. And then I showed him the CD3 machine since we were at Big Turtle, and he goes, well, I didn't think I was allowed to use that because he thought it was a man decon machine, and he didn't think he was allowed to use it because it has to be a trained person. So I showed him what it was and showed him what it is, and he goes, oh, well, these are things I just need. These are perfect tools for me. I need these. I'm going, well, you should have got, I didn't say this to him. I thought it. Well, you should already own them. Because, I mean, if he has trouble pulling plants off of his trailer, he needs to bring something with him to do it.
Bruce, that brings up a really good question. Does anybody with a CD3 station, have they created their own signage on how to encourage people how to use them?
No, I'm
'Cause we've
relying
kind of-
on Jeff for that. Jeff Forrester, he's working on it. I missed that last meeting, so.
I feel like we've been going in the circle a little bit on what we're doing with
Is
that.
that crickets I hear in the background?
I don't think I really need it. And then he will. And this summer, I'm going to do some ads of my own, just short little ads, since my ad campaign money has gone down quite a bit because of the DNR decon machine going in.
Well, it was a phenomenal gift. I know I just made fun of it, but it was a phenomenal gift, and we're hoping it'll get used on Winnie quite a bit.
Yeah. Just gotta get, and that's the biggest thing I found out is people didn't know they were allowed to use it.
They don't know. Yeah.
I run into more than one person that didn't know he was allowed to use the machine. I was like, well, it's free, it's right there. This is all it is, and you're not going to get injured. The air hose is not going to put any air in your skin, even if you pull it up to your ear. Don't do that though.
Yeah.
And you've tried, haven't you? No.
Yeah.
No.
So, yeah. Sorry to steal your meeting, Tina.
I think we're in the very informal part of our meeting now. So
No, I guess what I like is and I say this at all these meetings that I go to, that it's pretty ingenious that, you know, we've got basically 87 or 85 separate laboratories going on and seeing what ultimately susses out, right? Things pull ahead, things fall back, but we're like converging on something great, I think. And I think, you know, one of those things is going to be those tankless hot water systems. Ideally, hopefully with a cold water mechanism for regular people to use, right? For both bait and things like that. And I'm just, you know, with the data scientists and the stuff that Maastricht is doing, that we can put together a network of these systems across the state. Like I just call them the Delta hubs, right? Minnetonka's a hub, Leech is a hub, Waskish up on Red Lake's a hub, and then the smaller ones down the line. And, you know, the highest tech stuff is at these central hubs, and then they get progressively simpler on down the line. I just think that's the way it's going to go.
Yeah.
And what's really cool is that we have 84 laboratories, and we're the only state in the nation that has 84 laboratories.
Yeah, I just wish I could talk the township halls into putting a hot water faucet on the outside of their building. I think what I need to do is tell them that you guys really should put a hot water faucet on the outside of your building just so the kids in town can get access to it. And don't say anything about boaters. And then I just start telling boaters to go to township halls.
One way to do it.
Yeah. Just have to start worrying about where it drains to is the problem. That's why they're not doing it. And that's why I haven't been able to get one. It's because we have to worry about where it drains to.
Yeah, the draining issue is a very Minnesota specific issue. You know, Colorado doesn't have that much of a challenge. They have more space to put these at. They're more, you know, they have fewer roads, fewer lakes. They can centralize these things a lot more. Whereas we really need to put them at those hubs, at those high use accesses that just don't have the structures yet, and really do need to be reconstructed to have stormwater collection properly.
Yeah.
So
be very aware of where that water goes.
Yep.
So,
but we're working on it. We're trying it out in some places, and yeah, as we learn more, it just gets faster and better. So Kyle, I see your hand up. Go for it.
Yeah, I was wondering, and I wanted to be present for more of this meeting, but I had a doctor appointment. I couldn't switch, so I was trying to listen in while I was, you know, talking to. That didn't work. So anyway, I missed the portion I really wanted to hear, which was about the kind of the actually with what Ariana had talked about. I missed her whole presentation on kind of technology at the landings. And I was wondering if somebody has played around with just putting grabbers, like Dana had sent me an email with a kind of more robust grabber that looks like it would handle the elements a little bit more, and just almost leaving them. It's similar to the CD3 unit, but just kind of a, you know, cheaper option as far as leaving those at landings that maybe the lakes that already have the like milfoil or something present, where you'd want to make sure that weed was definitely removed from the trailers. Maybe not thinking about every landing in the state, but just the higher risk of transporting milfoil. And even though maybe, you know, I've heard some of the cost associated with these types of things is in the cable or, you know, the post or whatever, but, you know, just kind of continually replacing what may go missing, not dealing with cables and security and everything, and just you show up and there's one missing and whatever, they're $10-15. Okay, let's put another one out there. And then maybe hopefully someday eventually that just stops becoming a problem. People stop sneaking them away.
Yeah, well, Ariana's still on. Ariana, go for it.
Yeah, thanks, Kyle. You probably weren't the only person that missed my presentation because we had some technical issues there, but so we actually we got the cost down pretty well. So I kind of shared with people earlier, we got it down to about $130 per station in the second year. And the grabbers that we put out were pretty, I wouldn't say they're like super rugged. I haven't seen the picture yet of the one that Dana was talking about having people order. So I just sent her an email so I could take a look at it. But ours are, I would say, probably middle ground. They're not like flimsy and lightweight by any means, and they have a pretty good grip on them. We paid like $10 a piece for ours. We've had one go missing in 2 years, possibly two, because we have an association that took the tools in, and so now it's just a matter of figuring out who they got handed off to and getting those back. But yeah, like just replacing them year to year, we figured if we're missing 2 to 4 tools a year, 2 to 5, even if we somehow miss 6, right? As long as we're not missing 6 to 10 a year, it winds up still being really cost effective because that just means people are using them. So yeah, there are grabbers out there. We don't typically see people take them. The one thing we've had issues with people taking are squeegees. Like, I think just because they really like to be able to clean their cars off with them, we've had inspectors report that there are people stopping at the stations just to use the squeegees on their cars and then leaving, which is fine, I guess. But so yeah, so we do leave ours there. They're not cabled, and they're pretty cheap to replace. Not as cheap as $3 though.
Yeah, I
And
would
did you-
advocate for the untethered things as much as possible, because the tethering, unless there's like an automatic reel back, can cause a lot of safety issues too. If it gets like caught up in like a car axle or boat axle or something, then you're really, really stuck. So replacing something for $3 or $10 is a lot cheaper than trying to fix a car that got caught up in your sign system. So
Sure.
although I haven't heard of that being too much of an issue, I know Ramsey County has them tethered with wire cables that you hand reel back up, and they haven't encountered anything significant that I'm aware of. But you know, that's obviously a very high use. Lots of people that are not just boaters using all of those accesses. So just every access is unique.
Yeah. And is there any need for permission for doing something like that, being that it's a DNR landing? Is there any?
Yes, yes, yes,
Okay.
yes. Yes.
Is that like a conditional use, or what was that called? Or
Special use.
special use permit
Yep.
for
Yep.
per landing then?
So we can do a special use permit for that for one organization like Aiken County, that would cover, you know, 7 different accesses. So we can add as many
nice.
as we want, and it's a lot easier when it's a county versus a lake association. So because we can just put all of the stations for the whole county that you're interested in on one special use. So your contact would be Carrie Hull. Actually, Carrie Hull moved on from our invasive species program and is now the Parks and Trails area supervisor as of today out of the Brainerd office.
Congratulations to her.
Yeah.
Is you could build the units, and instead of putting them in yourself, donate them to the DNR and let them put them in at the accesses.
Yeah, in that case, with the small tools, I would say that it's probably just as easy for the special use. And you'd still need to maintain them because we don't have the staff to do that. But
sure.
Nice try, Bruce.
No, Bruce, but I like what you're saying, because I think the mechanism, the most expedient mechanism to, if this permanent rinse or permanent decon works up in Waskish and the one on the North Shore, I think the model might be the counties put up the money, but they're state assets.
Yeah.
And that they're put
Yeah,
in and
especially
engineered by
about
the
that.
state, right? And that maybe counties will pool money to do that. I don't know if that's going to create weird perverse incentives where you're getting the centralization of spending when it was supposed to be a decentralized program. But I think that's sort of the mechanism and the route that I support. Because yeah, for those bigger ticket systems like that, it's just much more straightforward. Probably work with the internal DNR agencies and have them be on their books and not require leases and things like that.
Yep, and we haven't tried it yet, so it's just something we're willing to give a shot at. So.
Yeah, I was figuring out the cost to keep that thing open 8 to 8.
Yep,
it's quite a bit.
Staffing is going to be the additional piece to coordinate.
Yeah.
So.
Well,
And I saw Mike's on here, so I'm sure we're going to be bumping in. I'm going to be yelling at Mike constantly during the summer.
Getting people to use it.
Be
That's
nice,
what it's
Bruce.
all about too.
Hey, Mike. So
Tina,
he might be
I know we
yelling at
talked a
me
little
too,
bit.
though, so
No, I'm around. I'm listening.
I'm sure we'll figure it out, Bruce. It won't be a problem.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. So
the only thing that I would say to Spencer's comment, word of caution with if we try to proceed with these is if you give us the money and you want us to put them on DNR accesses, you're going to be subject to the DNR model and process and engineering, which is likely what has driven the cost of this Washkish one up so high.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
not that it's a bad process. It's just if you were to pick an access that's not DNR owned, I think you'd have a lot more flexibility and freedom to get them up A, faster, and B, cheaper.
Right. And which is why, and you're kind of familiar with what we're doing in Otter Tail. We've kind of got like we've kind of got 3 experiments running at the same time. It's the portable decon units that you operate or the state operates. It's the semi-permanent Lambda unit that I operate on a permanent basis at Otter Tail, and then the rinse station strategy. And what we're trying to do is either unify all those things or see which one of those horses is going to win the race. Yeah. And what limits me, and I think it limits a lot of the other counties and leaders here, are like literally it's like 95% of the public water accesses in Otter Tail County are owned by the state. So I need to play the state's game. I've got 3 city-owned or township-owned places I can work with, but Otter Tail Sportsman's is not one of them, and but that's where I want my thing. So anyway.
What if you can find tax forfeit land right next to the landing?
I know. So we're very because we've talked with you, Bill, on that, and I know Justin and Douglas County has that. We don't really have any tax forfeit land at all. Period. And if we do, it's like off in the middle of nowhere, not next to a lake. So I love the idea, but that's like one of those your mileage may vary type things.
Yeah, there's some state or city land that's owned by the city of Black Duck, butted right up against the Black Duck Lake main access for Black Duck Lake, that I was looking at this year, trying to figure out how we would get a road into there and a decon into there. But the one side is like a 8-foot drop. So I'm sure we could get a backhoe in there and rip it out and all level it out and stuff. So
we actually had people
Brent about buying the land. So
we had people drive off the access ramp that we made, and then we had we didn't, but the Lake Association had to put big posts in. I've gotten some traction with businesses that seem to be interested, especially if you go to a boat dealer. It seems to me that would be a natural match. But if you could just take the points, crossroads where you're going, and here in Grand Rapids and in Deer River, there's tons of them. But you're talking incredibly expensive land, or places where there's already a car wash and they don't want the competition. But what cost $50,000 6 years ago, we estimated it would cost about $65,000 or $70,000 now. That's for an all-electric tax forfeit land, sinking your own well.
Yeah. So.
But staffing it is the hardest.
Yeah.
But if it's right next to a landing, you can actually have the same person do inspections and use the decon station.
Yeah.
If you time it right and you put in a traffic counter so you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But
of course, then you don't have inspections going on while the decon's going on, but
no, and at the rate we're going,
people in though.
Yeah.
Well, we all know that the $10 million 14 years ago to have the same buying power right now would have to be $12.5 million. So that's a 25% decrease. And I know I'm feeling the pinch here. It's tough.
Yep.
Yeah, you're not the only one, Bill. That's definitely come up at
I
tons
know.
of other meetings that I've attended. Is what used to get things done is having to be cut and then having to explain that to stakeholders and say why you're cutting one place and not the other has been really challenging. We'll definitely talk more about that at like the strategic planning workshop in a few weeks. So, but yeah, we're happy to, DNR is happy to chat with you. Like, reach out to me if you have ideas on things you want to do at Water Accesses, and I'll get you in touch with the right people and work through the processes. I know it's bureaucratic, but it's what we have to get what we need done in the right way. And once it's there, it will be there in the right way. And so that's what I always try to advocate for, because yeah, it's going to take some time, of course, but once we get it there, it'll be the most useful resource we can make it.
Tina, Doug, thank you for everything. I have a 3:30 I have to get going to, but this has been phenomenal. And as usually with all these meetings, the networking is really key to everything too.
It's
so
always
I appreciate
the
the extra
end.
time.
Will
So
you
thank
guys be
much,
attending
everybody.
the in-person ones too? Because that, like, we
There's an
weren't sure if we were
in-person
going to do
one? I plan to.
online and in-person and how that might flesh out, but.
Yes.
Yeah, I plan to on the 22nd.
You're not talking
March.
about the, okay.
Yay.
Oh, wait, I remember that. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. 2 thumbs up.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I think we'll close it out for the day. I'm going to end the recording.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep, I should get back to work too.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Good discussion.
Yeah.
Learned a lot.